Hello and welcome to Keeping Up With Conspicuous. We've got the brilliant Kristoffer Ruyeras, MVP, with us today to talk us through all things Dynamics, Business Central, and what the future holds for training gaps and reskilling. So welcome, Chris, to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
That's all right. That's right. And Chris is joining us today to talk about all sorts of things, and one of the things we're going to talk about is his journey and how it all began. So tell us a little bit about yourself and I guess how you got into the dynamics world and what the community means to you.
Yeah. Again, thanks for this opportunity to kind of share my story. And, I hope my story inspires others out there that, you know, possibly want to get into the dynamic space. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about of the need for more talent in the community. And we want not only the application to grow, but also hopefully give someone an opportunity to make a career out of it. So a little bit about me. My name is Kristoffer Ruyeras. I reside in the Great Pacific Northwest in Washington State. So I am pretty close to where the headquarters of Microsoft, Redmond. I'm about 30 minutes away from there. My current role right now is a vice president of operations, but my career, my background in dynamics dates back a while. And I started my career in IT actually right when I'm still in high school. So I had an opportunity to do internship while I was high school. I think I was like senior high school. And so I barely
cool.
was in the high school half of that my senior year. And so ever since then, I fell in love with IT. I actually initially wanted to be a psychologist, and was interested in the minds and how the minds work. And then IT came along and kind of scooped me up, and I was like, this is awesome because not only you get to speak to individuals still, but you're also trying to solve business problems and technology problems. And so I got the way I got introduced to, and I know it's a little bit long story. The way I got introduced to dynamics is actually by accident, particularly one of the organization I was working for at that time. They were moving to dynamics, and I had an opportunity to be part of that selection process, but I didn't actually run the project. But the project was running about a year, and there was no end in sight. And what had happened is at that time, the CIO I was working for, COO I was working for, and the IS manager kind of like they left 30 days before go live, and everything was in shambles. And and shout out to Terry Morello. She was my first consultant I worked with, and Greg Williams as well. And I remember, I remember they looked in the corner, and I was like, hey, that guy's been hanging out with us for a while, and he's always asking these questions, and he's really driven, right? I was like, that's then they spoke to this CEO, the president at that time, like, can you run the project? And so they asked me, and I was like, let's do it. Let's do it live. It just reminds me of O'Reilly. We'll do it live. And so I ended up doing it. So I took it, and I think I needed about 60 days or less, because I already understood, and I picked up, and I was doing stuff in the background, and I was like, let's just do it. And I think less than 60 days we had it scheduled, and we went live. It wasn't perfect, but you were able to transact, create an order, and we were able to ship, right? Like if you're able to ship, that's good. Your product is going out, right? And then you're able to take the order in. So, and that's how I kind of fell in love with implementing Nav at the time, or ERP just in general. And I fell in love, and everyone's like, wow, you must be crazy to do ERP implementation. How do you love it? And it's like, and I did. And in my history after that, I kind of went to becoming an independent consultant for quite some time. And then, of course, this young kid figuring it out. We didn't have at that time, we didn't have a good documentation in Nav, or what's a good way. and then end up finding a good partner that took me, kind of believed in me and said, let's give this guy a chance. He's an independent. He's been doing it for quite some time, and they took a chance, right? And I tried different places, be an independent, and there was a partner at that time that kind of hit me, um, a set of reality in one of the things that they had mentioned. It's like I didn't have enough experience. It's like, even though I was an independent consultant for a couple years, and clearly I had an amazing track record. I say so. I think it's an amazing track record being independent. And then after that, I'm able to build and help build this organization where I'm at right now, and so it's been a fantastic journey, and of course it allows me to kind of really give back, and that's why I continue to be part of the community and have speaking sessions and help mentor others, and hopefully I inspire others. And one of the things that I'm doing now too is doing a Dynamics Corner podcast with Brad Prendergast, and again, an opportunity for us to speak to many individuals in the community. At the same time, I get to learn from them, and hopefully anyone that's listening to us also are inspired to continue with their journey and focus and upskilling or getting into that space and not be afraid.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that probably since you started, like you said, the documentation's got better, the ability to reach out to people has got easier.
Yes.
Before it was a lot reliant on going to conferences to pick up information, which is still obviously an amazing thing to do, and probably still number one thing to do. But there is a lot of resources out there that will help with that as well, and it's very easy now to reach out to someone like yourself or someone else who's an MVP, or someone else who can help, who has the knowledge to share. And people in the Dynamics community are very good at that. I think out of all the ERPs, I think the Dynamics community is exceptional at knowledge sharing, and it's just genuinely a nice community to learn from, and everyone's in it together. So,
right.
I mean, there's definitely. I was thinking when you were saying you want to do psychology, I was thinking there's probably definitely a study out there for someone to do a psychological analysis of people that love ERP. So there's probably definitely a study in that, but
risk takers.
Yeah, risk takers, chaos lovers.
Yes.
So there's definitely something in that. But yes, and so see, I mean, I think it's really interesting, your journey, because obviously you came from a background, and this is often 99 times out of 100 people fall into Dynamics. They don't necessarily go to university or saying, I want to be a Dynamics professional. They they get into it through, like you say, maybe the customer they're working with implements Business Central, or they just get into it another way, or through a referral. But I think it's really important to know that there's so many different ways of getting into it. We spoke about this before the podcast, about how this talent shortage, or this talent gap in particular. I think you mentioned you've seen it. I think you mentioned you've almost seen it increase over the last few years. You've seen particularly there's a lot of good senior people who've been around a long time and are very knowledgeable. And particularly there's maybe some good junior programs. I think you were saying, weren't you, maybe that mid-level is not quite there, which is interesting, because that's normally the level. That's kind of the level, isn't it, where you constantly have people doing projects. The mid-levels kind of the key level. I mean, they're all key, but the mid-levels, up there is one of the most important, because they're the ones that normally end up doing a lot of the work, a lot of the projects. So, I mean, is there any reason why you think that's happened, or what are your thoughts on that gap?
I think a lot of that, again, this is solely my opinion and my observation. And I think what had happened during the COVID times is that it actually, I feel like it paused a lot of people to reconsider a different path of their career. And so you have, and not only that, but also if you take a look at the path of Microsoft Dynamics nav to Business Central, there was a little bit of shift of BC14 came out and give you an opportunity to kind of get yourself comfortable with Business Central, and it kind of jumped to BC Online. And So you have
Mm.
a lot of the seniors and in the space is also trying to learn, and at the same time, they were, I think they were expected to also
Mm.
teach junior um,
Yeah.
talents, and so not only they're trying to learn, but they're also expected to
Yeah.
teach the younger generations, and so maybe that's where the gap is. And again, this is other people's experience may be different. Clearly for me, when I'm interviewing, whether they've been doing 20 years of this, and then we have maybe people that just with less than 5 years, right?
Mm.
Finding someone, at least when I was interviewing new talents for the organization, it's always either the ones that are doing it for over a decade, almost 2 decades, and then people that
Mm.
started their career less than 5 years ago. As you know, less than 5 years ago is COVID times. And so that to me is where I see the little bit of gap. And at the same time, everyone's learning. So you have new talents, and then
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
also have talents that are also trying to learn Business Central along the way. And as we all know, Business Central changes so often with new
Yeah.
features. We're all learning, right? Even for me, I mean,
Yeah.
I've been doing it for a long time, and it's like I'm learning something. I'm still learning.
Yeah. 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 Every day's a school day. So yeah,
Yes.
no, I think that's well, yeah, I mean that's it. I mean it's interesting. I mean, I hadn't thought of it that way before, but I guess you're right. I guess that there was that transition from the technology side of things where everyone was so busy learning that the experts were almost students again, and therefore didn't have the time to also teach the juniors what they've just learned. Um, and I do agree with you. I think COVID also has had I think there was also the issue with COVID, and I did feel sorry for kind of junior people that had joined training programs in that they were maybe the first to go. If a company was suddenly going, right, okay, COVID's happened, pandemics happened, I think the junior professionals maybe felt it were the worst. I think
Yeah.
that a lot of people who've been brought on training programs were then got rid of very quickly, which is really hard because then it's really hard for them to seek another job because they don't really have any commercial experience, or not much. So
Yeah,
yeah, that was a
exactly.
struggle.
You need that and there's, of course, there's a path for consultant. Back then we were very application specific consultants. So you were an application consultant or a functional consultant based upon a specific product. And if you take a look at the Microsoft ecosystem, we were introduced with Power Platform, Power Automate,
Mm.
and all those things that works with Business Central. Not only you're expecting your seniors to consider those applications when you're building a solution for developers or even functional to consider those, but then you also have younger professionals that are getting to the space that maybe have 5 years or less under their belt on consulting. Now they're also not only they're trying to learn the
Yeah.
application, but they're also expected to learn all the other aspect of integrations and the options for any businesses. So which one do you focus first? Do you focus as a business consultant fundamentals and then understanding what it can do for you? That's a balance that we all have to do. And I still do the same thing when I'm speaking to clients or prospects. They have a problem. The first thing and I think about is I'm a business consultant. I'm trying to help
Yeah.
them run their business. Just happen to use all the different options of technology to make it all work together and then put it all together.
Yeah. I think yeah, I agree with that because companies have had to adapt to that as well, haven't they? I know you mentioned the individuals having to be students again. And I think companies have strategically had to adapt a lot in the last 5 years. There's been a lot of challenges,
Yes.
um, which has meant it's really hard for them to kind of work out. There's been so much. Even going away from broader economic issues. You've still got the issues with changes in licensing, like you say. Application consultants versus now you're a business consultant for all sorts of technologies, and companies have had to adapt to that. At the same time, thinking, well, how do we bring new people through? How do we make them billable? And that's taken time, and of which, therefore not enough time to then train people as well. So it's really hard. And but I do think for anyone listening out there, there is a lot of opportunity to learn from people like Chris. Um, and there are some amazing training programs. And I think that Microsoft and other companies are trying to address this because they do. I mean, for as long as I've been in Dynamics, it's been a problem. Probably as long as you've been in Dynamics, Chris, it's been a problem as well. I think it's just a generic, there's not enough staff, not enough talent problem has
Yes.
been, I've heard, since I first picked up the phone in Dynamics, that's how it is. That's always been the issue.
Yes.
That hasn't gone away. And
No.
there are, there's definitely been more, actually, I'd say, in the last sort of 3 to 4 years, more than ever before. I have to say, more efforts to try and solve it. And I think we talked about a few before, and you mentioned a few. There's the Microsoft training program, and I mean, how have you seen those evolve over the last few years, and are they sort of beginning to work? I don't know. Are you seeing talent come through those programs, or what are you seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of the things that we're doing internally is we took 3 of our juniors, they one of them just came out of college, right?
Oh, okay, yeah,
And with computer science background, and then of course that's more focused on he's more focused on the development. And we also have 2 individuals that have 5 years or under their belt as a consultant. And so we invested in that, knowing that half of their time is going to be spent in that program. And so for us, it was an important investment because they are going to be the future of a business consultant or functional consultant or developer in this dynamic space. And so we saw the need for that, and it's one of the things that we're working on to continue to have that program. And I think they're just finishing up with theirs, and then we'll go through another batch of the next team members that wants to get the right support that they need to be successful. Because if they're successful, they'll help us become successful. And ultimately, if they're successful consultants for not only for us, but even for a good advocate for Business Central as a whole. So everybody wins, in the long run. And for that to work, organizations, or even for people that's been in the space for quite some time, we have to encourage that. We have to encourage different diverse group of individuals, and different levels of talents, or different levels of where their career path is currently. And so I think we owe it to them for the future of the product. We owe it to them for the future of our business as
yeah,
well.
yeah. And so, partners sign up to the Microsoft program, do they, or does Microsoft sign partners up? Do you reach out to Microsoft, or is it the other way around?
We reach out to them, and then we just send however many people that we see fit, and then they
Oh,
go through a
okay.
program, and they just have to dedicate half of their time. And then I believe they meet at least once a week. And
Okay. Yeah.
and yeah, and of course, for us it is an investment. We want to make sure that they're getting value out of it, not just from us for our perspective, but they're getting something. So we get some feedback, and it's working out pretty good for us, pretty well.
Yeah. That's really good, isn't it? 'Cause I think, again, the problem, like you mentioned before, was that the old way of learning was, shadow a senior consultant. They'll, teach you how to do it. But again, the problem then that partners have is that their senior consultants, if they're doing that and they're doing a lot of teaching, they're not necessarily, with the customer, and
Yeah.
therefore they're not being billable. And also, and if they add it onto their schedule, then you have, poor senior consultants working, 100-hour weeks because they're doing 30 hours of training and 70 hours trying to catch up with stuff to do their actual work, their customer stuff. It's really
Yeah,
difficult. It puts a lot of stress on everyone. So
you're right. So a lot of partners are service driven partners, right? So it's the time spent with your client, it's where it's billing. But I think if you structured it properly, where you are encouraging seniors, senior functionals, or veteran consultants, if you encourage that and give them an opportunity, we come to realize that a lot of our team members that's been in a space for quite some time are excited to be part of it, right? So, but we also have to make sure that we encourage and invest in that. So it is okay to, like, hey, instead of 40-hour billable, just for easy math
Yeah,
here, like 40 hours a week, right?
yeah,
Maybe just do 32, right? And then
yeah.
invest that 8 hours of that week helping someone, and then that person can have a return investment in the near future. And so again,
Mm,
it's a balance. I think every organization is going to be different in how you would approach that. And yeah, I think take the time to ask your longtime veteran in the space, and
mm.
you'd be surprised. Like, I'm excited. I'm ready to edge. I'm ready to mentor.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true, actually. Yeah, because I mean, often, well, all the organizations have so much talent and knowledge within their own business that
Right.
could easily be shared and
Yep.
help everyone else be better. And I'm sure every company in the world could do slightly better just from using the knowledge they've already got in house. And just getting that knowledge into people that don't have it is going to help
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah, and there's one thing that people need to remember is that, and that's why I appreciate all the people that have come across in my life to, they spent time with me, out of their day to help me, educate me.
Mm,
Not only that's also fellow MVPs in the space, other leaders I've come across with in the past, and colleagues, and friends. Um, you know, I, I appreciate that, and I think it's something that we need to champion more in
mm.
this space.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant message. I 100% agree that it's so important to give back because, yeah, like you say, you have received help. You know, definitely in the early part of career, I'm sure you already always, exchanging ideas with everyone, and it's really important to give that back to the community because it is a great
It,
place.
and I do want to point out too, you'll see from a different perspective as well. When you're working in an application for so long, that you have someone else coming in, and that maybe a simple question that you haven't thought
Mm,
about for so long, and it's like, what, you're right, that is standard, or yeah, you're right, why did we
yeah,
do that? And it could be as a basic question. And one thing I do love is that, you can teach knowledge, right? You can teach the application, you can spend the time, and eventually they'll get it. But one of the things that you want to look for is the people that are driven. You can't teach drive, you can't teach passion, but you can actually see that when you're speaking with someone, and where they reach out to you and ask questions. I do encourage that. Reach out to anybody that's been in the space. If you are a person that's listening, or even or watching this,
hmm
and you are interested in learning, reach out to the people in the community, and you'd be surprised that they'd be more than happy to kind of guide you along the way. So
yeah,
have that drive, and I think you'll be okay.
yeah, yeah. I completely echo what you say there, Chris. I mean, I think that's so important that you're right. You can't teach that drive and always be inquisitive because there is always, no one knows everything and there's always something to learn. So reach out to people, ask them. People are happy to help. And in fact, like you say, if you don't know the answer, it's actually interesting. If someone asks
Yeah.
something you don't know, you go, "Oh, I actually don't know that. I need to ask someone else to find out the answer to that because I actually
Yeah.
don't have that knowledge."
Yeah,
So,
and there's a quote that I've shared, and I don't really know where this came from, but there's a term, white belt for life, right? Like, when you're
oh
karate class,
yeah,
you're always learning. So if you have that mindset, even if you're somebody that's in the space for some time, if you have that mindset of, like, I'm always going to learn, whether I'm learning it from different sources, or even from a junior, younger talent, you have to have that mindset, the mentality of a white belt, and I think you'll do great. It's for someone that's been in space for some time. I'm always surprised, like, I forgot about that, and then someone, a person that's been doing it for a couple of years, and it's like, hey, I just learned this. It's like, oh, I forgot that feature is there. Right? So, like,
Yeah.
it's been a while since I used that. I'd forgotten. So yeah, it's fantastic
Yeah.
community as well.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I completely agree. Yeah, it is brilliant. Everyone would learn. And to be fair, it's like us here at Conspicuous. You know, if someone calls me and says, "Oh, you know, a salesperson down the road, can I come in for an interview?" I'll interview them. You know, because they've gone to the effort of picking up the phone, and you know, or if they, you know, if someone came to the door, not that it happens, but you know, if someone did and said, "Oh, I'd love to work as a, you know, recruitment consultant. I live 10 minutes away. Can I come in for 10 minutes for a conversation?" 100%, I'm going to speak with you. You know,
Yeah.
there's a pretty good chance I'll hire you. You
Yeah,
know,
and
because
and
you're,
that's driven, right?
yeah,
They're driving themselves to want to learn.
yeah, you've gone to the effort of coming to see me. You know, and there's a pretty good chance. Well, you're definitely going to get an interview. You're probably going to get a job. You know,
Yeah.
and again, I know that's more of a salesy way of looking at it, but again, the same is true of anything. It's just passion and enthusiasm and inquisitiveness. If you've got all those things, you will be fine. Like I say, everything can be taught. You know,
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
everyone likes to. Well, I was really saying the other day, people get more pleasure out of, you know, people get a lot of pleasure out of, you know, teaching a child to learn something is one of the things that people get the most pleasure out of, because people enjoy teaching, you know, kids because they see the results all the time. I think we lose that a bit as adults, but we don't
Yeah.
realize as much that we're teaching all the time.
Yeah, and I gotta share a story, and it's probably one of my favorite thing that I've done. And one of them was actually somebody that I had hired at some point, and I remember he went to school, and I think he went to school for 2 years, and his background was actually in warehouse, and he was a guy that did warehouse work and a lot of manual labor work, and he took it upon himself to go to school in computers and um, so somewhere along that line for 2 years, and he went to go look for a job, and no one would hire him because he didn't have experience. He had the education on from a like the normal level of getting education and knowledge from college, but he didn't have the hands-on experience. And when you look for a position, it's like, yeah, you need experience. So it's like, hey, that was like me. No one gave me an opportunity, so I gave him an opportunity, and and I hired him, and I knew that I was going to be taking on an additional responsibility, and at the same time, like, I still have, we still have to run the business, right? Like, I still have to
Yeah.
support. And so I did end up taking the time, and because he was driven, he had asked, and so he told me, just give me a chance, and I hired him, right? Hired him.
Yeah.
He worked with me for 2 years, and after 2 years, he's come to learn, and it's okay too, like, for me, when someone says, hey, I've learned what I could learn, and I'm ready for my next level, and if there's no spot for me to give that person, I'm going to give him the best recommendation to the next place. And there was so much respect that he had told me that. And I was like, I have nothing against, I don't take it personally. So he got hired to he ended up working for the city and became an IT manager, right? And a
Oh, cool.
director. He called me like years later, out
Yeah.
of the blue. It's like, who's this number? It's weird. And I didn't have his number
Yeah.
at the time. He had a new number. He called me and he goes, hey, Chris, this is Shane. His name is Shane.
Yeah.
And he said, man, I just want to say, I haven't spoken to you for a couple of years. And I just want to say thank you. And I was like, oh, like, wait, for what?
Ah.
He goes, because you gave me, I'm kind of a little emotional here because I think
Yeah.
about him every day, because that's what I want to, that's the impact I want to give. So he called
Yeah.
me a couple of years later, said, Chris, I want to thank you. And if you had not given me a chance, a small chance to prove myself, not only to you, but to myself and my family, I wouldn't have got a house. I said, I'm able to put my kids to college, and I'm able to take my wife to vacation. And I'm like, dude, you're making me cry right now on the other side of the phone. And I was like, I appreciate you telling me that. And I'm glad that, I have a small part in your life to give you that to your family. and yeah, it was an amazing phone call, and we check in each other from time to time to see where we at in life. And that to me was like
Amazing.
my
That's
favorite, right?
amazing.
Like if you
Yeah.
were to take that, like if you can do that for somebody,
Mm.
right? That's an amazing feeling. Like if you ever felt that way, if anyone
Yeah.
ever reached out to you, you know how it feels. You know.
Yeah, so yeah, I agree. If you could bottle that feeling and sell it, then
Yeah.
you'd be a rich person to do that. So yeah, that's that, and it's so and that's love. That's so lovely that he remembered and he's got that gratitude.
Yeah.
And that appreciation for what you've done, and really all you're doing was giving him a chance. But it means so
Yeah.
much to someone. So
And there's several of
um,
those stories, I've had
mm,
in my career, and um, and it feels good, and that continues to drive me that I'm making some impact by even if it's one individual human being at a time, because at the end of the day, yeah, it's you're building talent and skill, but you're also making a life for somebody that wants to be in this space, and yeah, we need
yeah,
more individuals to
yeah,
create
yeah.
more stories like that.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, we need more of that, Chris. Definitely, that's amazing. And I suppose that's one of the things looking ahead, is that we just need a bit more of that, because I do
Mm.
think that is, well, it's incredible, and that's how you get people into the channel. That's how you get people loving people who help them and loving the product. Um, is there anything else you can think of? I mean, I think I like I said, I mean, I think that it's moving in the right direction. Um, is there anything else you think either individuals or partners or Microsoft themselves could do more of that would help get more people into Business Central and Dynamics and working with all the products and loving
Yeah,
life?
I think one of the easiest things that any partner or any organizations out there in the dynamic space is just having that messaging somewhere. Whether you are involved in a community program or involved in a conference, you want to encourage that. You want to let them know that, hey, we are always looking for talent. We are always, and of course, you don't just want to hire any talent and hopefully you'd fit them somewhere, right? You
Yeah.
you, you want to be able to, you have to have a path. You have to give them an opportunity to be successful in that role,
Mm,
because they are coming to that space. But I think for at a current state, I think everyone's doing a wonderful job in being involved, in kind of speaking and giving that avenue for anybody that you should be easy to reach out to.
mm,
And it shouldn't just close out. No one can get a hold of you, and things like that. So you have to make sure that you're allowing yourself to be open to have that conversation, open to have a possibly giving someone an opportunity. And I think I think right now it's a perfect timing. If you take a look at the Microsoft ecosystem in the dynamic space, you have Power Platform, and Power Platform is a good opportunity. It's because it's low code, no code, and pro
mm,
code.
mm.
That could be a path for somebody to learn, right? So not only it's a good way to get started in someone's career path, but also give them a path towards something else, maybe become more customer facing or client facing consultant. And along that path, maybe with, I'm using Platform as an example, but along that path, they can also learn the business aspect of it as well.
Yes.
And so and I think that could be a potential way for partners to do that, because there's still conversations out there, like partners like, how do I sell a Power Platform, right?
Yeah.
How do you get this going? And so we struggle with that a little bit for some time, and we realized, like, hey, let's get some talent, and that's what their focus would be. And we use it as a path for somebody
Mm,
to start their career. But
yeah.
yeah, I mean, and even for
Yeah.
me, I'm
Yeah. I
still
agree.
open. I'm still open for and you to have that conversation, because I'm also learning. Like, what are other ways can we do
Yeah.
to increase that talent pool?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's you're right. There are a lot of new products, and there's a lot of, and often the best way to really push a product with their business is to kind of almost, segment it so you really focus on it. So I think that's good.
Well,
So you then give autonomy to the people you hire to really get behind it.
yeah, and if you in at Directions, they had noted that there's now 45,000 Business
Oh yeah, I
Central
saw that. Yeah,
online customers or
yeah.
clients. And so if you think about that, there's the last number I remember was 40,000. Now it's like it added 5,000. And that wasn't too long ago that they had noted 40,000. And so if you think about that, that's a lot of
Yeah,
growth. And
yeah,
so we need talent to can not only
yeah.
maintain, but also there's more of opportunities there. And for you to be able to do that, you have to have that natural flow of new talents coming in as well.
Yes, yeah. And I'd also recommend to anyone that's watching this that the MVP program is very good at Microsoft. And if you can reach out to MVPs, even if they aren't hiring, they might know someone who can help and possibly will. And all that takes is a quick browse of LinkedIn or some Googling, and you will be able to reach out to people. So if you're looking to get into this space, then there's definitely options there. And I completely agree with you, Chris, that all partners and consulting companies should just have an avenue open where it's easy to contact them. So that if there's someone who is, like we discussed, passionate, enthusiastic, inquisitive, they can reach out to someone easily so that it's not difficult for them to do. So I think
Yeah.
that's really important to note, that there is some great people out there like Chris who can either help himself or point you in the right direction, and people are willing to help. So there's definitely stuff out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a site in Microsoft for MVP. So if you have a specific area of your interest, and you can search for other MVPs. And I can only speak for uh, with the Business Central MVPs, and I don't want to speak for anyone, maybe I should, but we're all open to have that conversation. You can always reach
Yes.
out. You can always reach out to me and say, "Hey, Chris, I
Yeah.
want to start my career. How can I get started?" Be more than happy to guide you and help. And that's what I love about being in that program, is everyone's always willing to teach you.
Mm.
And and I'm still learning from them too. I mean, it's
Mm.
a two-way street, right? So it's not like
Yeah.
it's hard to know everything. So
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Seasoned white belt.
Yeah. Yes.
But yeah, well, that's great. Well, one final question, because I know I appreciate you got to go and do some conferencing, so I won't keep you too much longer. But we always ask, and now we always say at the end, we say, if you weren't doing Dynamics and you were doing something else as a job, what would it be? What would your dream job be if it wasn't in Dynamics?
See, that changes, right? That changes. That changes. I'll give you a fun example. A fun example. If I wasn't doing something else, I'd probably go back to one of my passion is doing psychology. I'm always interested in how the mind works, right? So I would probably be in that space. Like I want to know how people think. I'm always interested in that. So that's probably what I want to do. But currently, because of again, interests change, right? So I watch the show Yellowstone, and and I love the not the violent side, but kind of like the but kind of the simple life living in a ranch, right? Like just get up in the morning, you do your routine, and enjoy what you're growing and building. And so I try to convince my wife, say, hey hey babe, let's go move to Montana and buy a ranch. I want to live like that. So that would be really cool long term, maybe while I'm still young, right? But other than that, so that's the fun dream that I would love to do. And of course, where money's not a big deal. But then the other side, I'm always interested with the mind. If I can sit down and just kind of learn how
Yes.
thoughts are generated and what drives that and what makes you choose those things, and yeah, so that, and one of the things
Yeah.
that I'm kind of losing my thought here, and I apologize, but
That's what.
my grandmother, who I grew up, she had she forgot a lot of things, and
Mm.
and they're time travel. I call them time travelers, and so there's moments where she thought she was still in high school, right?
Ah,
And
yeah, yeah.
she at times where at some point in her life she thought I was her son, and so to me that's very interesting, because like they are a true time travel. They travel in mind. They see me differently, right? So
Mm.
that I get super excited about that
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah,
and if I wasn't doing any of the dynamic space, I would probably be doing a lot of research on that.
yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
Chris Sigmund Freud.
Yeah,
Really.
yeah. I mean, there's so many interests, right? Like, and
Yeah,
that's like one of them, right? Like not
yeah.
only for the ranch, but like I love the study of cosmology, the stars and stuff like
Oh,
that. So
yeah,
that's another
yeah,
thing
yeah.
too. So I'm a
Yeah, yeah.
nerd.
You're a lifelong learner, Chris. You love learning.
Yeah,
I love it. Oh, that's
yeah.
so important. I'm glad you said that you wanted to own a ranch when you said you watched Yellowstone. I was a bit worried you were going to say, I look forward to cattle branding a load of people in Montana, but
Oh,
that's
yeah, take him
I'm
to the train
glad.
station. No, I can't think of like I think about train station. That's that's what I think.
Well, I'm glad you said the ranch sort of growing animal side of it.
Oh, good times, good
Oh
times.
yeah. Oh well, thank you very much for coming on. As I say, anyone listening, definitely reach out to Chris or the MVP program, and actually we could put a few links to it as well, so that people can see. And thank you very much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of the conference, and yeah, and hope all goes well. Enjoy sunny Las Vegas.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Alex. And yeah, please reach out. I'm always open to have that conversation. I'm always curious.
Yeah, perfect. Bro, well, thank you for joining us, Chris, and
All right.
yeah, have a great rest of the week.
You too. Thanks, Alex.
Take care. Bye, bye.